Okay, so this class I gotta be sure the recording is recorded nicely. Block 6's recording got messed up when I went to have full screen, so bear with me as I double check those things. We're starting a new PowerPoint set. This one's all about arrays. We're taking a little pause with objects for now, but soon coming back to them early next week as we talk about arrays of objects. Cool. So the thing that's due this Friday are your DICE assignments, as a couple of reminders, and Arrays 1. So you had 2 weeks to work on the DICE assignment. I hope you've gotten close to getting this done. You should have a grid of dice, and somewhere on the screen you should have the total sum of all the dots or numbers that are currently rolled. That's due this Friday. Let's get rid of this. And then the new stuff that was assigned yesterday, which will start today, is the Arrays 1 coding bat problem set. So you have 3, 6, 9, 10 coding bat problems to do. The first couple are rather simple, and you should be able to accomplish after this lecture. The last one involves the loop. That one I think will be most challenging, and I think a lot of you will be able to get it by this Friday. Okay, open this twice. So now if you want to follow along, the PowerPoint is located right here, slide presentation arrays. Let's begin. Double check my recording. Looks good. Get this thing to appear. Okay, so this problem set is due on Friday. If on Thursday or on Friday you think you would need more time, do email me asking for an extension. Keep up that line of communication. Otherwise, I will grade it with something lower than what you want it to be. So arrays, the really helpful analogy is thinking about apartments. Yeah, you have people living at the apartment, and people at certain apartments have numbers in them. And that sequential ordering of data or sequential ordering of people is what arrays are. So here at the top left, we have int, and notice the square brackets. Square brackets are located by your return, the right-hand side of your keyboard. Make sure it's the same button you press for the squiggly braces, okay? So these two things denote arrays, okay? And as I'm just focusing on the yellow text over here, the declaration of an integer array, the computer reads this as an integer array called nums. In red on the right-hand side is the initialization of this integer array called nums. It is set to the values 5, -4, followed by 17. Notice the use of these squiggly braces. Okay, this is an initialization and declaration and initialization of an integer array. Visually, here's a diagram that represents what's happening in the computer's memory. You have your name of your array, and then you have your three numbers, 5, -4, and 17. What's interesting to pay attention to is that these things in square brackets, these things are the location or address or index of each of these numbers. So the numbers that we live inside, often the generic term for them are elements of this array, and then we call this the index, right? Notice that the first thing is at index 0, at position 0, at address 0. This matters a lot. In computer science, we're often 0 index. We start counting at 0. And it affects some of the things in later slides. So, move this out of the way. Notice right here, we have that same array, And now we expect system.out.println, if this is your first time seeing it, that this thing right here, as humans, we see 1 and we think, okay, it's the first thing, and it returns -4. Well, actually, no. First thing in my array is 5, so we think nums square bracket 1 returns 5, but actually it gives us -4. That's because of that zero indexing idea. We start counting addresses or indexes at position 0. So actually, 1 is tied to the second thing. Having an index of 0 is the first thing. Having an index of 2 is the third element. Having an index of 4 is actually the fifth element, so on and so forth. So going back to that analogy, elements of the array are the people or whoever lives at the apartment. Index, that's the address. Often you will get mixed up with these two things, the element versus the index. Why? Because they're often both numbers, but later we'll see other examples of, like besides integer arrays, there's characters arrays, arrays of objects, a bunch of different things. Here, in this example, we introduce another keyword, length. The dot length gets you the name of what, or the length of whatever array you input on the left-hand side of the dot. So this thing returns 3, because there are 3 things in my array. This is the dot length operation. Length is super useful when we want to print out all the things in the array. Imagine doing an audit of all the people in an apartment building. You want to print out each person's, like, who's living there. This is what this for loop is doing. And then you notice right here, this only prints out the first 1, 2, 3 things. And your array could vary in size, like for example in this one right here, we just made it 3, but it could be 4, it could be 100, it could be 1,000,000,000. Sometimes you don't know. And that's why the dot length is very useful. Okay, nums.length, whatever the name of your array is, dot length gives you the number of elements inside that array. So this slide is going to be super helpful for 3 of the problems from your coding bat problem set. There's kind of shortcuts to accessing certain elements. Specifically, the first thing is always going to be square bracket 0, okay, index 0. The last thing is going to be length -1. That's the position that the last element is going to be in. Why is it -1? Because we start counting at 0 for indices. But you got to be careful here. Sometimes when you have an empty array, so an array with no things inside, you can't do either of these things. Because the length is 0, 0 minus 1 is -1. Java can't process negative indices. If you try to access the first thing and there is nothing inside, it gives you an index out of bound error, which I think you'll see during your coding bat problem set. So down here are 4 system.out.print lines. As a quick check for understanding, message me the 4 numbers or letters that these 4 system.out.print lines outputs, please. You can private message me or post it in the chat. What numbers or letters will be displayed onto the screen. You don't have to do the spacing. You can just separate them in some way so I can see that there's 4 separate lines of output. Yep. Seems like the third thing, yeah. Careful with the order, right? Because it goes top down for programs. Good. Well, I'm seeing a lot of people with the right idea. Yep. 1A, 3D, very good. So that is the output for these three things. We can go over why. So nums 0, that says print out the first thing of the nums array, which is 1. Second line, letters, square bracket 0, that says print out the first thing of the letters array, which is A. Shoot, I always have to click away when I click on like Zoom stuff, so that's why I have to switch slides every so often. Nums square bracket, nums.length minus 1. This in red is the shortcut for the last element. So in the last element inside the nums array is 3. And then the last part, letters square bracket, letters.length minus 1. It's the last thing inside the letters array. So that's the letter. Oh, did I mess up? 3 and then D. Yep. So as another practice inside chat, listen carefully to what I'm going to say. I want you to give me the index of the letter B. What is the index of the letter B? Index of the letter B. Type that in the chat, please. Very good. All right. So now you gotta be careful, right? When I say index, I'm expecting a number, just a number. So for those giving me something else besides the number 1, that's a little extra. It's not needed. All right. So now give me the line of code that would allow you to access the element inside the nums array. How would you access the number 3 inside the nums array? Like for example, I wanted to print the number 3 from the nums array onto the screen. What would go inside that system.out.println line? I want that element. Nice. Good, good, good. Some of you are even giving me the system.out.println square. Oh, good. Very good. Nice. Copy and paste from the slide or typing it all out. Very good. All right, last one. I gave this to Block 6 and they were kind of confused. I want you to compare the second element of both arrays with each other. What would that line of code look like? Second element of both arrays, please compare them. I don't want whether or not that's true or false. I want the code that compares the second element of both arrays. Please enter the line of code in the chat that would compare the second elements of both arrays with each other. Give you a little bit of time to... Good. Give people a little bit more time to type out what they're thinking. You're comparing the second elements of both the nums array and the letters array compared to each other. Cool. So what I was looking for specifically was the use of the double equal sign and another reminder to the second element being these two things. So at minimum, I was expecting something like this, which I've just posted in the chat. Num square bracket 1 double equals letters square bracket 1. If statement would be nice in there, but that's extra. Very good. Num square bracket 1 double equals letters square bracket 1. That compares the second element of both arrays with each other. So overall, just some practice with language. Thank you for listening carefully and typing in and participating in chat. Let's move on. So These next couple slides are rather specific to the CodingBat problem set, because I'm assuming arrays are new to everyone. Notice here, in this example, make new array, it returns a array. Notice the square brackets here, it's not just int, there's square brackets afterwards, which means it expects more than one, potentially more than one integer. So, in these following lines, we create a new array called nums, and it has the elements 1, 2, and 3 inside of them, and you return it. So this is a little bit extra compared to what we're doing before. Like, for example, a lot of you did int answer, or int sum, or int temp. So those kinds of things, it looks a little different in the array form. So 4 of these problems require you to return an array. So go back to this slide as you work through it, if you're stuck. So notice the difference here. In this example, up here, there's no square bracket, but instead we're given an array, right? This is the input. This is the argument. So now we're returning the first element. That's what this thing, this is how you would return the first element of array. It only gives one number versus the entire array. Like, pause, yes. So this thing's going to be helpful for one of the problems. This stuff I think I'll save. I don't think we need to use new just yet. You will use it in your upcoming assignment, chemotaxis, where you make an array of objects. For now, we'll come back to these slides probably next week or maybe Friday for us. This is another way to initialize an array and then fill in each spot using a loop. I don't think we'll need that. So in the remaining 8 or so, we got more time than that. We got like 13 minutes. Okay. In the remaining 13 minutes, please start on your CodingBat problem set. Use this time to knock out the first like 3 or 4 problems, and also use this time to ask for live help. So click on this link. Start on this, please. Double check that you first off signed in so your progress is saved. I'll also take questions at this point in time. CodingBat arrays 1 stuff will take priority. We could talk about some things related to dice, but I wanted to give you all an opportunity to start on the arrays 1 problem set.